It didn't take much more than a bottle and 2 chairs to make a speakeasy. This is what Daniel Okrent said in his book, Last Call, The Rise and Fall of Prohibition. Today, join us for some stories. Get your own bottle, glass, or mug, and relax. This is Speak Easily, and I'm your host, Krista Stauffer.
You're gifted this wonderful story about your family.
Yeah, the best bit already with you.
Right. And it kind of makes up for whatever bullshit you had to put up with for having him as your dad.
You live with a herd of humans. I mean,
that's kind of like the... What would that be like the gift for the comedian? Is that the stuff that you've already got? Like, wow, you're so lucky to.
Well, I always tell writers that writers never have a bad day because anything that happens is a story.
Yeah.
You know, if you get arrested in Mexico, okay, you have a few really shitty days in a Mexican jail, but you have a lifelong story.
To write about.
You have a great story, right?
There is my favorite music artist is Ben Folds.
Oh yeah.
But he paired with Nick Hornby, who's one of my favorite authors. And there's a song called Doc Pomus, who wrote a bunch of songs for Elvis and all of that. But he kind of gives this description of they're in this restaurant in this fancy hotel, you know, and all of these whores, pimps, and Marxists are all there. Everybody's there, and then somebody gets shot. And there's a line, Doc looks down, eating his linguine, thinking up a lyric in his head.
Right.
This is so perfect.
Absolutely.
So you like to write then, too?
Yeah, I've made my living as a writer.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Are you from here?
No, I grew up in San Francisco.
Okay.
Why
are you here?
My wife is from Ohio.
Okay.
And I was able to take an early pension from the Writers Guild. I was a television writer for 25 years or whatever, 20 years, I guess.
Wow.
And so I took an early pension and we moved out here.
What did you write for TV?
Ellen, The Drew Carey Show, Two Guys and a Girl, Real Time with Bill Maher.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of shows, probably about
How hard is it to come up with material? Because there's a group, right, of writers?
Oh, yeah. You work on in a conference table. Coming up with material is like anything. It's especially when you're working on a sitcom, especially then, like in the 90s, when there were a lot of sitcoms. The hard part is kind of finding a lane. I mean, I loved writing. I wrote on Ellen the year after she came out, and that was great because we had virgin territory. No one had ever written about a lesbian before, and it was like awesome. We could, in fact, someone who works for the Human Rights Campaign in D.C. a few years ago called and said, "Did you know that you're like in our timeline of like milestones in gay history?" And I was like, "Why?"
Awesome.
He said, "You wrote the first gay dating episode in network television history." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that. That was awesome."
That was what, early 90s?
No,
Mid
99, I think. 98, maybe.
was it that late? Oh my God.
Probably 98, I think.
Wow.
Okay.
And it's remarkable about how, we were getting bomb threats. We probably got bomb threats a dozen times that season,
Wow.
And Disney, which owned ABC, hated that they had the gay show, and so they were doing everything they could to shut us down, but all of a sudden the show was a hit. It was okay before that, but when her whole coming out thing, huge.
I remember that episode.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of one of those,
In fact, I gave Ellen the line that she still uses occasionally, which was that she's the lesbian formerly known as Ellen. Because that was also around the time Prince became the whatever the artist formerly known.
Oh, yeah.
But,
the symbol.
Right.
That was just weird. I didn't follow that one
Very
well.
weird.
Yeah.
Yes. So I worked on a bunch of, stand up and then found a way to make money.
How did you start off as a stand-up then?
Yeah. I went to school for political science, but and have always worked in politics too.
Yeah.
We can talk about that. I worked on Capitol Hill.
Oh my goodness.
But I started doing stand-up really just as a hobby, and it wasn't really until I moved to LA in the late 80s, and actually, literally, I got booked on The Tonight Show, and NBC sends a limo, and it was in the limo on the way to NBC to do my first Tonight Show when I thought, I guess this is what I do.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a comedian now. It always felt like a hobby. Well, like as an actor too, it's always like you don't ever really expect it to, be your bread and butter, and so it was like, okay, but still wasn't making any money at it. I got $600 for the Tonight Show.
Yeah, we artists make nothing.
No, right.
No,
right. But something. The Tonight Show for a comedian, especially back then, was the stamp of approval. No one could ever question whether I was a comedian or not. So I did the Tonight Show.
How was that experience? Was it scary?
Awesome. Yeah, but performing is scary. It's why we do it, right?
Yeah,
That's the whole point. It might go horribly wrong.
Awful.
Right. And sometimes it does, and
and then you've got a story to tell about it on stage.
It was. So, it was by far my parents were in the audience, and it was.
So that was still Carson, wasn't it?
No, it was Jay Leno's first year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Jay, in fact, right before I went on stage, came backstage and said, right before I went out, in fact, William Shatner was the first guest.
Oh, my gosh.
And during the commercial break, he comes out and he says, the people are saying, okay, you've got 6.5 minutes. We're going to give you this sign at 1 and this blah, blah, blah. And Jay goes, leave the guy alone. Hey, you're funny. I'm funny. If I'm not talking, you should be talking. You do your damn act, and anything these people tell you, don't let them get in your head. And then he said, the only thing I want you to think of when you walk out on stage, I want you to tell me who didn't believe in you when you were starting out. And I said, Dan Harris, the owner of the Comedy Cafe in Washington, D.C., told me I would never be funny. And he said, so when that curtain opens, the only thought in your head should be, fuck you, Dan Harris. And it's funny when I watch a tape of myself occasionally, as the curtain opens, I'm laughing because that's what I'm saying in my head. Fuck you, Dan Harris.
You should walk out like...
I know. No, but because Jay is a comic, forever... he knows what a comedian needs to hear. It doesn't mean to remember your set or it's
break leg.
Right. Yeah. It's whatever. So.
Wow. When was the first time you tried stand up?
Well, high school talent show, but I think I did mostly stuff off Steve Martin's album. Did not fit me at all. I was not a wild and crazy guy, high school a little bit, and then a little bit in college. Grew up in San Francisco, so there was a comedy scene.
Yeah. But you studied political science.
Yeah.
What did you want to do initially with that in mind?
Be president.
Okay.
Why else do you study?
Can you please?
Actually not. California governor was probably what I really wanted to be.
Okay.
Yes, I worked in politics.
Wow.
I did theater in high school.
Yeah.
And then once I kind of got into college and was really involved in politics, I just felt like I didn't have time to do theater anymore. Yeah. So really kind of did stand-up as let me try this. Mm-hmm. And I was horrible, but that's kind of the point of being a comedian. It's really hard when you start out. And then after college, I moved to D.C. to hopefully get a job on Capitol Hill, and I didn't get a job.
Okay.
And there was a club there that gave you a beer and a bowl of chili if you did 5 minutes on open mic. And I was like, all right, I should do this. I've done this. And
bowl of chili.
That was their bar food.
Okay.
I think technically that's when you become a professional, so they start compensating.
That was my first compensation, absolutely. Yeah.
Chili.
Yeah.
And it was, it just so happened to be mid-'80s when the comedy boom was taking off. Yeah. And so was a very rare time in for a performer when there are more jobs than there are talent.
Yeah.
When does that ever happen for us? Right? You know, and that's what it was. It was like there was kind of this cadre of headliners from New York and Los Angeles, but there were no opening acts that were any good. I mean, there were a few.
Yeah.
And so suddenly there was just a lot of demand for me.
Yeah.
You know, and so I started almost immediately making horrible money, but at least some money, but traveling all over the country.
Oh, wow. Just like on the circuit tours kind of thing?
Yeah, so there were a couple like really great clubs that I got to work, but there was also these one-nighters, it was called the Comedy Zone, and it was one-nighters mostly in the South.
Okay.
And you would do like bars like Wednesday, Thursday night, and then you would do like the lounge at a Holiday Inn Friday and Saturday.
Okay.
So you'd get these tours. And that's really where I learned how to do comedy and really be a comedy writer, because I just bombed hard there. I mean, I was really good in DC, for a local guy, and then I went, but I was, I was a Catholic kid from San Francisco, and the first time I went on stage in Alabama, and there were no Catholics. And when they said I was from San Francisco, the audience just started yelling faggot, you know,
So
and I was like,
wow.
Oh, shit. And so I remember just bombing bad for like 3 shows in a row, and it was just horrible. It was just like living in a constant panic attack, you know, and I finally decided it's not the audience's job to find me funny. It's my job to make them laugh. I gotta figure something out here. And I went and really, really worked, for the first time, on my act and writing material that was universal, and mining stories from my own life, you know, like, okay, what were the most embarrassing thing that happened to me as a kid?
Yeah.
You know, and so it and, you know, little by little it kind of took off. But yeah.
It's ironic you say that. You said that was Alabama?
Yes, Dothan, Alabama was and years later I had a horrible experience in Birmingham as well, but
When I volunteered for a Christian home repair organization in high school, we met a group from Alabama.
Okay.
And this girl comes up and she goes, "Oh, y'all are from Ohio? I know how to talk like y'all. What's up with yous guys?" We're like, I'm sorry.
Swing
She's
and a
like,
miss.
aren't y'all in gangs? No. And then somebody else was like, "Oh, it's just a bunch of corn there." So we, of course, then created the corn gang.
Right.
You know? So, it's bizarre how generalizations happen.
Well, and it was more so than I think now between the internet and cable and everything, we've become more homogenous, which is good in some ways, but it's bad in other ways. I liked the idea that when you went to Alabama, you would eat at the local diner that had Alabama food.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of enjoyed that.
I do too.
It wasn't like, no, we just go to Olive Garden and Chipotle, whatever, you know. But yeah, it was, and it wasn't to me so much regional as it was, you know, I used to say, if I walked into a club and there were, you know, more than 10 guys wearing hats, I was in trouble. You know, whether it was a ball cap, but you're in a nightclub, you don't, you know, back then especially.
Right.
But again, early on in my career, I talked myself out of good shows because I would walk in and judge the audience right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I would, you know, had to go back and channel my high school drama teacher who said, you know, you advertised the show.
Yeah.
It's your responsibility to entertain these people.
Yep.
You know, they have absolutely no responsibility here. And, you know, it took me a while to do that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the great thing about stand-up comedy, the good thing and the bad thing, is that you share credit with nobody. If you're great, you're great.
Yeah.
I wrote it, I directed it, it's all me.
It's all you.
And if I suck, I suck. It's not the audience's fault. It's not the guy before me or whatever. It's the club. It's
you.
me.
Just you.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Are you able to be clinical about that at all? Like, is that something you can kind of, I don't know, like get your emotions out of that particular situation?
Not me.
No.
I am,
So I know some comedians can kind of divorce themselves from that, and some still
I try to learn from it.
Yeah.
But my go-to emotion is panic attack, usually, when it comes to performing, get off stage.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I could do, in fact, I did a show in outside of New Orleans last year with one of my best friends, and I did an hour-long show.
Oh, my gosh.
55 minutes of which was the best I've ever done.
Wow.
I killed. But I got off stage, it was only that 5 minutes that they didn't laugh. It was... I got into politics, and it was a very conservative crowd, and they shut down. Mm-hmm. But then immediately after it, I got them back.
Yeah.
But when I got off stage, I was
you forgot about
sweating,
the 55,
and I was like, God damn it. And everyone in the audience was like, you were great, man. What are you? Even the stuff we didn't laugh at, we appreciated,
Get that imposter syndrome thing happening.
Yeah, I think that's most artists.
Absolutely.
You have one... You forget one line in one part, in one scene of the show.
Or you're flat on one note, and you're like, oh, God, why am I even doing this?
Right.
Yeah.
Why did I choose this career?
Right.
I'm done.
Right.
Yes. No, I've never done or said that before.
And I think, because I have known comedians, not good comedians, but I've known comedians who always think they kill. Mm. And, you'll do, open mic at the Funny Bone, and someone will go up and be horrible and come off and go, I killed. And you're like, no.
Killed who?
You did not. Right. But there are those people who just have that idea that they are the best. And you need some, you got to be, you don't want to be too tough on yourself, but you need to be.
Be critical to see.
Well, how do you improve as an artist if you don't know what you're not doing the right way?
Right.
Yeah. And, you have to learn from that. And you don't get good by just walking up on stage and saying, nailed it,
No, and especially...
Nailed it.
That's all I do.
Well, and the idea that, like, when you see someone who is on stage and you say, God, they're effortless, it's like, that's because they're working really hard.
Yeah.
I've seen... James Taylor is one of those people, when you see him on stage, it looks like he is phoning it in, and it's so wonderful. And then you hear interviews with him, and he says, 10,000 shows into my career, I still doubt myself every time I walk on stage.
Yeah.
I heard Paul McCartney say something similar to that. Like, at his age, saying, it's like, oh, yeah, I still feel like someone's going to walk through the door anytime and say, Jigs up, you're terrible at this.
The thing that really changed my life, I'm a big John Steinbeck fan, and I read one of his books. It's called Journal of a Novel, and it's the diary he kept while writing The Grapes of Wrath.
Oh, wow.
And in it, it's all self-doubt. It's like, this is the book that's going to reveal that I'm a fraud. I have no right to write this book, and I'm horrible, I'm lazy. I wish I could write like Hemingway, but I can't. And that was life-changing for me. That was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
If John Steinbeck questions him, then maybe I should cut myself some slack.
Yeah.
But we don't. It's, that's...
Well, it's easy to say, I'm going to cut myself some slack, and then as soon as you're in that moment where you have that voice in your head that's going, what are you doing? Then... all over. Yeah.
Well, and I don't think you go into the arts unless you have that voice in your head.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Who the hell do you think you are?
Yeah.
Right.
To be doing this.
Yeah.
I'm but the other thing I always tell writers, I say it so much now it's become a cliche, is that the only way to be a good writer is to allow yourself to be a horrible writer. That when I write a first draft, I call it my barf draft, and it's just just get it out on the page. Get it out. It doesn't. There's no one's gonna read it except me. Get it out.
Yeah.
All of it, and then you go back and rewrite, and you know,
start pushing the chunks of the barf around,
right, and find okay, this stuff is no good. Oh, but this is good. But this maybe should go here.
Yeah.
And, but someone else told me early on in my writing career that we write for free. We get paid for rewrites. And it was a really good thing that the hard rewriting is the work part of it.
Yes.
The putting the story down the first time is fun. That's storytelling. The rest of it is labor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's both being self-critical and cutting yourself some slack, acknowledging that the self-criticism is just the thing we do.
Yeah.
And don't, you know.
Yeah. This is all good stuff. So, I wrote a play.
Okay.
It was intended to be a one act. I wrote the first draft, and then I had some people read it, and then I didn't touch it because I was scared.
Right.
Because it's like they ask the questions. I'm like, I don't know. I haven't thought that through. So I literally just put it aside. I picked it back up last night.
Oh, great.
I'm still scared, but it's. That to me is the scary part of it, like the rewrites and figuring out when there are holes, like how do I fill that and not just make it fluff and not
right.
Yeah.
Right. And then we also, you know, all of us have that, well, I think good writers anyway are always wondering if what we're doing is cliche or it's been done before.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best stuff you think, oh, someone else had to have thought of this. It's too brilliant.
Right.
I'm not, you know.
No, I agree.
Right. And we do that all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's good. I mean, nowadays, in the days of the internet, you can actually Google it and see if someone did that already.
Someone take my idea.
Yeah, or just do like the line. And so maybe it did appear somewhere else. But also, even if it did appear somewhere else, I mean, how many brilliant writers have ripped off Shakespeare over the last 400 years?
Right.
You know, all of them.
Yes.
You know, or the Bible, or we all borrow things from other things. We make them our own.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I've done that. I've done writing projects that I did 10 years ago, or maybe like, especially in the television world, I've pitched 1 million shows. So every one of those show ideas was very developed at the time, and some I sold and most I didn't. But every now and then I'll go back to one and say, oh wow, this is pretty good, or at least, or this part of it was good, or that character, the funny neighbor in that pitch was good, I should put them in something else, you know.
Was that hard for doing television writing, especially because you have to do it so much and so frequently? Was it hard when your idea wasn't selected? Did you struggle with that?
Oh, at first. Oh, yeah. You know, I mean, nobody likes getting notes, for one thing. You know.
Amen.
Right. No one likes getting notes.
Directors, I don't either.
And yet, I have never, ever, in everything I've done, has the next draft been worse than the previous one.
Yeah.
No matter how many stupid, ignorant notes some network exec gave me, and I walked back to my office going, oh, they're ignorant. It's always better.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's something you've got to acknowledge, that it's, you know.
It's not personal.
Right.
Hopefully.
I mean, I don't like when my wife tells me to do things either, but she's right. I should take out the trash.
Is it, in that situation, is it the notes or is it the act of rewriting the thing? That
Oh, it's the notes. It's the criticism.
Yeah.
Because you want mommy to say you're special and you're brilliant, you know, and not, you know, you need to take a shower, you stink.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is.
I say a lot of that these days.
Yeah.
Could be the quarantine.
Right. Well, it was so funny. Actually, just this morning is I was like kind of running late, and my wife said, "You need to shave," and I said, "I'm going to be wearing a mask."
Yeah, right? I know.
She's like, "What is that thing?"
It's kind of weird now. Like,
right.
Yeah, you know, everybody's like,
it's
this
so
this
weird.
portion is so covered.
It's, yeah.
Unless you wear a kid mask like I'm doing today. It's clearly way too small.
Yeah.
So most of the time I'm eating the fabric, which is great.
Right.
Yeah, whenever you can feel like a puppet while wearing a mask, that's always good.
No, it's horrible, and I totally understand the people who don't want to wear masks. I don't think anyone wants to. I can't imagine that there's anyone who wants to.
Mine's covering up some acne, though. I kind of like that portion.
Right.
It's nice.
So where I live in Plain City, so I'm right next to Dublin, but you go west or east to civilization, to Columbus, and you go west to 1950 in Marysville.
Yep.
You know, and I go to Rural King all the time, and I love Rural King.
What is Rural King?
It's exactly what it sounds like.
That is one of the hardest words to say.
It's kind of a lower rent tractor supply company.
Rural King.
Rural's a hard word.
Rural.
So when I go to Rural King, I am the only one wearing a mask other than the employees.
Right, because they have to.
Right, and it's also, I think it might as well just say Democrat. You know? But, people give me looks. And one guy one day said, "You think that does you any good?" And I said, "Oh, I hope so. I have AIDS." And he kind of took a step back.
Dude, he's just...
Yeah, he took a step back. Oh, my God.
I heard somebody say that it's like I hope so, because I woke up this morning with 102 fever and I'm just not feeling real good.
Right.
And yeah,
it's like...
But something like, let's let bygones be bygones. Give me a hug.
Yeah, give me a hug. Yeah.
Right. Yes, it sucks.
Yeah.
You know?
It does.
Yeah.
This whole thing sucks.
And if, I tweeted out last night that every one of Trump's shithole countries handled the virus better than we did. It's like if only we were a shithole country. We would not have to wear these stupid masks now. Our kids could go back to school, and there would be baseball games, and
we're not even a shithole country
no.
at this point.
And that's the thing. It's like just this idea that we're going to politicize everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
I was in college in San Francisco, kind of as the AIDS epidemic was starting.
Yeah.
And at the time, no one really knew what it was, but they knew it was gay men that were spreading it. And San Francisco State was a huge gay population. In fact, I had an internship in Harvey Milk's office.
Oh, wow.
Supervisor on a campaign. And there was this fear, and my parents were afraid for me that, being in this, because we didn't know where we were getting it. Right. And if someone at that time said, and I'm sure people were, "You can't make me wear a condom," you'd be like, well, you are killing people.
Yeah.
You are potentially killing people because like this, people could have AIDS for years and never know it.
Right.
And back then there weren't even good tests for it.
Yeah.
So you just had to assume
Everybody
people had it.
Right.
Right? And so you dealt with it, So it's a kind of a similar thing to me. It's like, I spend 90% of my life in my house with my wife and daughter. There's not a lot of opportunities for me to get sick.
Yeah.
But there are some. I go to the gas station. I go to Rural King. Yeah.
You're good, and that's where you'll get it, is Rural King.
Yeah, no, Rural King, I think I'm more likely to get mad cow disease or something like that. I think there's some carriers there.
What is mad cow disease? I mean,
it was literally
a mad cow?
A disease that made cattle go crazy and it infected their meat. I was in London once in the early 2000s, and they had stopped selling beef. You couldn't get beef. You go to a restaurant, no one was selling beef.
Wow.
And it was something like the cows were ingesting other cow meat for some reason, or it was being fed to them through. That's
where it comes from. Right. Because they would put bone meal in their food.
Thank you.
And so they were cannibalizing, which is what they do. A lot of factory farms
which is why
do
you
that.
shouldn't be a cannibal. Just throwing it out there, but you know,
we don't want to disrespect our cannibal viewers.
You can't tell me not to be a cannibal.
I hate people.
That's right. Well, I've thought of it because I have
Cannibalism?
chickens.
Oh.
No, I have backyard chickens, and
Do you really?
I sometimes mix the shells of eggs into their food because it's good for them, calcium-wise.
Huh.
But I keep thinking of that. It's like, isn't that kind of like cannibalism?
Yeah.
Should I be feeding them their... I don't know.
Or is that the equivalent of like people eating placentas?
Yes, it
I think
probably
that
is
is.
that too.
Yeah.
Which is also something I don't endorse, but
No, I don't understand that.
yeah.
I don't.
I will defend your right to do it, but I will not
this
participate.
Is good. What is it? What's it? Oh.
What is it? It's supposed to be healthy?
Yeah, it's loaded with, I don't know, good
is.
stuff. Yeah, I guess, but still,
Some are
like.
gummy vitamins.
Right.
I was gonna comment on. I've seen it. I don't want. No, we're gonna just go beyond that. But
Well, apparently cockroaches are very healthy to eat. So, but
They're
still,
supposed to be good
no,
protein.
thank you. Yeah.
Well, the thing the chickens love the most are mealworms, dried mealworms.
yeah.
And I read someone in one of these kind of blogs about chickens. I was looking for things, and someone said, "Oh, whenever I feed them, I always pop a few in my mouth. They're very good for you." And I was like, "Oh God, it creeps me out just getting a handful of them for the chickens."
Yeah.
They're dead, aren't they?
Yeah, they're dried.
Okay.
They're dried. Yeah.
That's not.
Well, they're
The
like
dog,
little-
the dog loves them. When I throw them out for the chickens, the dog chases the chickens away so
jeez.
she can eat them. So,
How many chickens do you have?
let's see. There's 6 hens right now. We've
Okay.
had 7 until recently. One of them, Colonel Sanders, was eaten.
Aww.
I just love that we named the chicken Colonel Sanders. But now we just got 6 chicks
Yeah.
that are and we. So I think I have 6. Last night we had them early in the evening. Had them outside,
Yeah.
and one of them ran off, and so I don't know if she's still around or not.
Okay.
It turns out everyone loves the taste of chicken. So like every animal will eat a chicken. You know.
I mean, chicken's delicious.
And so between the raccoons and the coyotes and
Raccoons will too.
raccoons are
Raccoons will eat
horrible.
anything,
Raccoons
man.
They're
are
evil.
assholes.
Yeah.
Oh, and they're adorable, but they don't
No.
actually eat the chicken. They just kill the chicken. So you'll go out and find like a chicken without a head, and the whole body
My
will be
gosh.
sitting there.
What's the point? They're just
Evil?
evil?
Yes. They're
Bloodlust.
horrible people.
Yeah.
Or people,
Wow.
animals. Someone said that they're after the food, so they see the chicken as a threat to their food.
Got it. Yeah.
Now the coyotes, that's where your chicken just disappears. You don't like, where'd it go?
Gone.
And then you'll find later under a bush somewhere the feathers and the bones.
Yeah.
They took
Yeah.
it to eat it. But fortunately, they're very cheap. I mean, baby chicks are like, 99 cents at Rural King. So, you can always,
But wearing your
they're
mask.
replaceable. Yes.
So, what? You use them for eggs, I assume.
Yes.
You're not gonna.
We don't eat them, no.
Okay. I mean I know that's a rather personal question. I'm
Well,
sorry.
the whole and I'm just a wimp. I mean, I eat chicken. I just buy them at Giant Eagle, right? But I should get money. I'm plugging so many
You are
stores.
seriously. Rural King is gonna be like massively busy today.
Right.
Chicks are gonna just fly off the. What do they fly off?
Off the
Coops?
carts?
Yeah.
Cartons?
Boxes.
No, I don't. But also, when you raise them for eggs,
Yeah.
you feed them differently than if you raise them for meat. And egg layers are much smaller than meat chickens.
Okay.
Because of the way they feed them.
Yeah.
So you see, like we went to the state fair last summer, and walked through the poultry area, and the chickens were enormous.
Yeah.
And
Like little turkeys.
yeah,
They
they're
are,
really, really big, whereas egg layers tend to be, they're free range. They run around all day, so they're, and while I put food out for them, but they mostly eat, bugs or whatever they find during the day. And they're actually really good for very, very few mosquitoes in my yard.
Really?
They eat all that stuff. Yeah.
Ooh.
So that's good.
My sister, actually, she lives in Ostrander, so not too far from you.
That's not far from me.
Yeah, so they just got chickens.
That's so much fun.
She started keeping bees as well.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
And we had the conversation, and she said, I never felt so dumb. I didn't realize that chickens, because I said, you have to have a rooster. She's like, they actually don't have to have that process to lay eggs. I was mind blown. I had
It's
no
funny
idea.
because most people say that. In fact, my sister-in-law said, it's like, as a woman, you should understand that you make eggs regardless.
We did have that conversation. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, right. And
They just don't.
And fertilized eggs, if you are, as far as eating them, are no different than unfertilized eggs because, again, it's something that. Now when our first batch of chickens, there was a rooster in the batch. Not that we had ordered it, but it just so happened one of the chicks turned out to be a rooster.
In your HelloFresh box.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because when we first started, we were going to get 5 chickens.
Okay.
And then my daughter said, "Can we get 6? Because I want to make sure every chicken has a friend." So I was like, "Okay, sure."
Chicken friends.
She was 10 at the time when we started this. She's almost 14 now, but
how do you say no to that? No.
So I was all right. So I ordered 6, and when we got them, I got them through this mail where they mail them to you when they're a day old. So I guess when chickens first hatch, they don't eat for 24 hours, so they have this window where they can send them.
Really?
So I was talking about it one night at the Funny Bone on stage, and afterwards a guy came up and he said, "Hey, if your daughter's expecting 6 chickens, you better order 7. You need an insurance chicken." And that's what he said. "Oh, there's always a dead one in the box when they come in."
Oh gosh.
And he said, "So don't open the box in front of your kid. Learn the hard way."
Here they are. Oh.
So I ordered 7 chickens.
Yeah.
So when they arrived, there were 9 chickens, and a little note from the hatchery saying 1 or 2 always die, so we threw in a couple insurance chickens.
They're insurance.
And I did not have a hen house big enough for them, so I had to get another one. But anyway,
insurance chickens.
Unfortunately, with the first batch we got, it was like in March, and so it was, and 2-3 winters ago, whenever it was when we had this crazy cold winter, that went on
polar
till
vortex,
May. Yeah. So the idea of having them out in the garage was not going to work. We had to move them onto the mud porch, and they are filthy. I mean, chickens, when they're little, they crap their body weight every day, every one of them. It's just, it was horrible. Oh. So now this time around with the chicks, that it's summer, it's easy. They're on the screen porch, and they're fine. They stay warm enough, and they're okay. Oh wow! But so we have 6 adults and either 5 or 6 chicks. We'll find out later today if that other one comes back.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. Do
you name them all?
We haven't named the new batch yet. One of them is Amelia Earhart because at a very early, like when it didn't even have any feathers, you could see it trying to fly. It kept bouncing up, and I was like, "She wants to fly." And my daughter said, "Let's name her Amelia Earhart." All right, that's a good name.
Colonel Sanders.
They're very bizarre. I mean, the names have no context to anything.
Yeah.
One of our chickens is named Tegucigalpa just because my daughter was taking a geography class and we both found that name funny.
Where is that?
Tegucigalpa is the capital of, is it Honduras, I think?
Googling.
Pretty sure it's Honduras.
Tegucigalpa.
But it's just such a fun thing to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that. Tegucigalpa.
Yeah, so it's not like they answer to their name.
Well, yes.
Tegucigalpa.
Yeah. Is it Honduras?
Yep,
Look
Honduras.
At that. I got something right.
Yeah.
Well done, you.
I forgot I have the globe on my face mask.
Was what
it's
I
right
found
around there.
Yeah.
I don't know where.
It's right here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. How long do they live? They don't,
in our case, not long because the animals killed him. We've only been doing this for a few years, but it would be wonderful if one dies of old age. I can't imagine that happening though. They get eaten. So I think they lay. It takes them about 5 months to start laying, and then I think they lay for 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And so what some people do is that after they stop laying, they switch them over to the meat diet so they can fatten them up and eat them. But I think, let's say I find it very unlikely that one of them is going to live beyond her egg laying years. Yeah. They're,
That's hard.
And we have it's been really good for my daughter because we moved here from California, from Los Angeles, and part of getting chickens was I wanted her to have a Midwestern Ohio experience.
The corn
and so,
game,
right, we have a couple of acres out there in Plain City. And, so, I've always gardened and grow vegetables and stuff, but that was it. And it was good for her to deal with that first batch when a couple of them got picked off by predators to kind of deal with it. Yeah. She got upset the first couple, and now it's like when I say I think we lost the chicken. Okay. Right. Although the worst part of the chicken, one night, I am mostly a pacifist. I don't hunt. I eat meat, so I'm glad other people hunt for me. But one night there was a commotion going on out in the chicken coop, and I went out there, and there was there was like 3 dead chickens, and there was like this raccoon inside the hen house. So I had a BB gun, and it did nothing other than irritate it, BB gun. Beep, beep. So it finally jumps out and like lunges at me, and I hit it with the BB gun, which snaps in half. And
oh my gosh!
And my wife, who is far more pacifist than me, is like, kill it! Kill it! And so this thing, and I had a shovel, and so I ultimately ended up beating a raccoon to death with my shovel.
Oh, wow.
And it's like 2 a.m, and so fortunately I live on a fairly busy country road, so I know that I could just throw the raccoon on the side of the road. Who would know? Right. So then I go back, and I go back to check on the living chickens, and I see that there is also a baby raccoon who's like clinging to the fence, mortified. Oh gosh! And so at first I'm like going to try to shoo it away, and again, Tina, who would never hurt anything, she's like, kill it! You have to kill it! It knows where we live! It makes sense, right? It's going to come back. Right. Eventually it will be a big raccoon that will come kill our chickens.
That's how Batman started. I mean,
So then I had to kill a baby raccoon with my shovel.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just horrible.
Oh, man.
Oh my God, it was like for days I was like, who am I?
Did you go back to sleep after that?
No, it was hard. I went back to drinking.
Oh. Look at yourself in the mirror and go, I don't know who you are.
Is this recently?
No, when was it? That was
during
probably
quarantine,
a year and a half ago, a year ago. It took me 4 or 5 versions of chicken coops before I got one that is predator proof. Okay. Now I mean, I hate to jinx it, but knock on plastic wood, whatever this is.
It's woodish.
Yeah.
So you're sort of protected.
Yeah. So now it seems to be. It just took a while. You don't realize. I mean, for one thing, raccoons are like monkeys. They have those hands. They'll open fence gates. They reach through the chain link. Yeah. I mean, they're
psycho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's except I think we have it figured out, but
It's amazing. And you have a dog.
I have a dog.
What does the dog think of the chickens?
Oh, she loves tormenting the chickens. She has no desire to eat one, but she loves chasing them, especially if they're ever, like when I'm feeding them treats and they're all like in a flock. Mm-hmm. She loves like just
to run straight into them.
Right, like when you see like pigeons in a park and your kid wants to go run,
Yeah. Oh,
that's fun for everybody. Who doesn't like that other than the birds? So she, and then the chicks, which are on our screened porch, which sometimes she goes to get outside. It's very funny because she will just, they're in like a big, like tub that was, I got an Earl King. That was something you would probably feed horses in or this huge thing. And so Posey, the dog, will just go and kind of hang her head over it and look at him, and it just freaks the chickens out. She's like so mellow. She has no desire to hurt them. Just likes watching them.
It's entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So we're hoping to get another dog at some point here.
Would you like a puppy?
Oh, yeah. What kind of puppy?
She's a poodle. She's great. We love her.
Oh. It's like what kind of poodle?
She's a standard.
Oh, nice. So our dog is a Australian Shepherd Standard Poodle mix.
Oh, wow.
Which I like saying better than what they call her breed, which is Aussie Doodle, which makes it sound like...
No. There was when we were looking, because I'm allergic to, basically everything. So poodle is just about... without getting a hairless breed.
Right. No, that's why we originally went for the doodle dog, because they don't,
And that was, we looked into, like, the golden doodle, but if there's too much golden in there, I would still be allergic to it. So we're looking online for different breeds, and there was a Lhasa Poo, the Lhasa Apso with the poodle.
Right.
But when my kids looked at it, they didn't really see it, so they said, is that I has a poo? So that, I think they need to make a breed of I has a poo.
Yes, I has a poo. Yeah, well, it's so funny because you see, there's this free newspaper called the County Classifieds, which is like the rural counties and people. It's like, again, it's like 1950. It's like, oh, remember when there were want ads? Well, there still are in Union County.
It's so strange.
But they're always advertising for dogs.
Okay.
Yeah. And so no one wants to say their dog is a mix or a mutt. Yeah. So they put the words together and make something. But also, so my daughter wants another dog, and honestly, our dog could use another dog to chase her around, so I don't have to do it all day. I mean, she wants to play all day long. She's 7 years old, but still wants to run all day long. Right. So we've been looking at like rescue places and stuff. And the other day I saw this ad for a 6-year-old dog that needs a new home. Okay. And then it said $500, and it's like, no. When you need to get rid of your dog, you just find a good home for it. You don't get to sell it.
No.
But it's like...
At age 5, too.
Right.
Like, why did it take you this long to...
Right. I mean, remember you'd usually say, free to good home or whatever,
Yeah. Go to the farm.
Right. So there's a rescue place in Plain City called Canine Companion that has a very cool dog that we saw called a Blue Tick Coonhound, which is like a very cool looking dog, and she's like 4. Mm-hmm. So we're actually going to go see it tomorrow, and hopefully we can...
Well, that's where it ends. Like, start looking at pictures.
Oh, God,
I mean, that's...
I remember, before this dog, I had a Vizsla. You familiar with them?
Those
gorgeous
are
dogs.
Yeah.
And awesome dog.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was single. In fact, it was when I was writing on Ellen.
Okay.
And my girlfriend was saying, you need to get a dog. And I said, I don't really want a dog. I kind of like being able to just go to Vegas when I want to or whatever, and...
Doesn't that sound nice?
Right? I know.
Going anywhere and doing anything
just getting on a plane, I know. So she bought me this book that had every dog breed in it.
Yeah.
And because I had never seen a Vizsla at that point, I said, okay, I'll get a Vizsla. Just because I thought that would shut her up, you know. And then like a month later, she said, oh, there's Vizsla puppies, like 2 miles from here. Let's go look at them.
Done.
And so we go out, and they were still just a few weeks old. And, you know, we sit down, and they one by one, they come out of their box. And this one came and, like, immediately crawled into my lap and fell asleep. And I was like, God damn it.
That's your dog now.
My dog.
And that was when we were, because we did the corn puppy thing. So we got our dog end of April.
Oh, okay.
But we started looking at the beginning. We kind of talked about it. Like, maybe we should get another one. Okay, well, I don't, let's just look. That's where it ends. You cannot start looking.
No.
You know, you see the picture of this thing. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And my daughter, she'll be 13. Oh my gosh. Dear Lord, next month.
She'll be in 8th grade this year?
7th.
7th, okay.
Yeah, she's on that older cusp. She's late August birthday, so.
Okay, yeah, my daughter turns 14 the end of July, so she's a freshman this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
What a weird year it's going to be.
It's so weird, and she is very mellow and, you know, not very low drama, which is...
That's beautiful.
Very
Keep that.
Lucky. I know, let's see how long it hangs on. She still thinks I'm an idiot, but that's fine.
That's going to continue for at least 4 more years.
Actually, so when she was 2, 3, whatever it was, we were like working on our counting and stuff.
Yeah.
And so one night I'm counting, and it was 17, 18, 19, and I said, what comes after 19? And she said, that's okay, Daddy, I don't know either. And that's kind of how I think of her attitude, her entire life is that I'm an idiot.
Yeah. It's amazing. Raising daughters, Ben's just starting in this phase. Raising daughters is something like no other.
Having a boy and then having a daughter, like, I mean, my boy, I mean, he's just sweet. He's like a puppy. He loves just cuddling and snuggling and being totally awesome, having fun. My daughter is just like, 1 minute she's like that, the next minute it's just like, no. It is cold. And then just turns it around. She's.
Do you remember the, I mean, this was more like our growing up, the Animaniacs cartoon? And there was a character on it called Katie Kaboom.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I think of my daughter's because it's like everything's fine, and then one little thing, and she flips into this monster, like the house is on fire, and then somebody says something. Oh, I was just hungry, and everything goes back to normal.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She'll. Now, I gotta say that by far the best thing about this virus is that Marianne has been forced to be my friend. You know, we binge watched The Walking Dead, and now we're rewatching Stranger Things.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Yeah.
You know, but she spends most of her time in her room. And, you know, it's funny, I'll go up and knock on her door, and usually she'll open the door, but every now and then it's like, what?
Like, I'll come back. I bumped in your door. I'm sorry.
Right.
Is she wanting to be back with people, or has she kind of embraced this?
No, she is. I mean, I was kind of a shy kid too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so funny. People don't understand that performing is not the same as being a functioning human being.
Yeah.
Performing is I don't actually have to listen to other. You know, I do my thing. But she kind of prides herself on being antisocial, although she really isn't. I mean, you know. So she has a fairly small group of friends, 3 or 4. Yeah. And so, you know, I kind of have to force her to go do a bike ride with them or something, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she, you know, I said, are you kind of bummed that you're not going to really have a freshman year? You know, probably the first semester at least is probably going to be at home. Yeah. And she's like, no, it's great. I don't have to talk to anyone. But so we try to, the reason we moved here is because my wife's family is here, and so she has cousins here.
Yeah.
So she has some interaction with them. But,
Yeah.
No, it's so funny. I was saying I did a radio show up in Marion, and they're like, oh, that's horrible that she's not going to experience her freshman year. And I said, did you enjoy your freshman year in high school?
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all. All I remember is that everyone else looked like they were already men, and I was a child.
Yes.
I was tiny. I weighed like 90 pounds, and I hadn't even had the privilege of getting zits yet. I was a child, and there were guys who had mustaches.
Right. Yeah. It's scary.
No. Yeah.
That we went to the same high school.
Yeah.
Oh, which one?
Gahanna.
Okay.
Lincoln.
And there were so many of us that year, the school could not hold us.
We had the largest class up to that point, and then the next year they shattered that number too. But it was like, I think our freshman year was like... It was
close to 600, wasn't it?
I thought it was more than that.
Wow.
Something like that.
Yeah, it was crazy.
They had to create a separate schedule for us.
Okay.
Which I think that was actually really good.
Yeah.
So we came later than everybody else, and we stayed later than everybody else. We had lunch away from everybody else.
Huh.
So partially...
It softened it up a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was still awful.
I mean, it's high school, right?
High school, yes. I would laugh when people would say, oh, these are the best years of your life. It's like, I hope not. No.
That's as good as it gets. I'm so sorry.
No, yes.
I just say it gets better.
Yeah.
It's college.
Right.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. No, not high school. Like junior year.
There are people, and there are people that high school was the best years of their life, and I pity them. I mean, I remember I haven't gone to many reunions.
Yeah.
But I remember going to a reunion, and that was my thought. I was sitting with a couple friends who were also dorks in high school, and we all have fun, fabulous lives and careers and everything.
Yeah.
And this one woman who was very cool, she designs, or back then anyway, designed plush toys for, I forget the name of the big Dakin, I guess the big plush toy.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that's such a cool job. And she said, that's why I was pissed when I found out you were coming, because comedy writer's better than plush toy designer. But we were saying, there was this table of like, who were the cool kids in high school.
Yeah.
And she said, high school really was the best years of their life, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you look at it and you're like, totally was. It's been downhill for them since 18. And at 18, I was still 10 years away from thinking my life was going well.
Yeah.
At our 10-year reunion, like all the cool girls showed up in a limo together. From the cool girls from high school all showed up in a limo together. It was like, wow, everybody else was there with their jobs and their families and their husbands, wives, kids, and they're like, well, show up together. Yeah.
I don't really remember, because we got a big group together and just got plastered before the reunion, so I don't remember.
Well, I moved away from the Bay Area pretty soon certainly after college.
Yeah.
And didn't, so... There's something really good about being someone who has gone away, because you don't have the obligation to go back.
You have a great excuse that's naturally built in.
Right, and people treat you kind of like a celebrity. Are you gonna go? Oh, Mike Larsen's gonna be there this time, or whoever. But it was so. It was remarkable how many of the guys who were doing the job their dad did. They were a son of a cop who were a cop, or they were a firefighter, or they worked in the auto dealership, and it was like, man, I love my dad. I didn't want to be my dad.
Right.
I wanted to be very different than my dad,
Yeah.
And it was amazing how, you'd say, hey, what are you doing? Oh, a cop. Like
duh.
All right. Right, I forgot your dad was an asshole. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's funny because my sister's doing what my dad did.
Oh, okay. No, I know people, especially if you have like a family business, I get that. You run the grocery store or whatever, but
not the exact.
But it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do that in something else?
Right.
Maybe?
Hobbies? What you do?
Right.
That's weird.
But it's funny, I had ran into someone, this has nothing to do with, I just don't know why you remember this. But just because I said assholes. This comedian, one of the first comedians I ever opened for was just a jerk to me. He was just this horrible guy, and I'd kind of always used him as like my reference of what not to be, you know. Well, first of all, there's a lot of people in comedy who are just so miserable, and it's like, if you're not having fun doing comedy, you're doing it wrong.
Right. Yeah.
So, years later, I was writing on Two Guys and a Girl, an ABC show, and we were on the lot, and we were walking to a run-through or whatever, and I see him, this comic who's there for an audition or whatever, and he's like, "Hey, Larsen, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a writer on Two Guys and a Girl." And he goes, "Isn't it funny who makes it?" It's like,
what does that mean, man?
Right. So
who says that?
I know. And the other
I guess I'll take
writers
anybody these days.
So then, like, maybe 2 weeks later, I was a co-executive producer, which is the level below exec producer, but I always sat in on casting, on producer sessions. And so we're doing this producer sessions, and I looked in the list of who we're going to see, and the name.
Gosh.
And I was like, so I told the casting director that story. And she said, "Well, he's not going to get the job." And I said, "Honestly, if he's the best, I'll pass him on.
Right.
But I'm hoping he's not the best." I'll tell you that.
Wow.
So he walks in and he sees me and he goes, "Hey, Mike, how are you?" And I said, "I'm good. It's funny who makes it, doesn't it?" And he's like, "Are you the producer?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm who you're auditioning for."
Yeah.
He was not. He was fine, but he clearly wasn't the best. So it was great. But
that had to have felt good, though.
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
Honestly, even when he said that, it kind of felt good because it's like, you're acknowledging that I've made it. Right, yeah.
Wow. But that emphasizes, I just taught high schoolers for the last 2 weeks doing like a virtual acting class.
Oh, great.
Which, that's weird. Brilliant, though. And we emphasize the point. We had a couple of guest speakers that work in film and TV, that work on Broadway, to talk to them about the industry and start taping. And each of them said, like, be kind. You never know who you're going to run into.
Oh, my God.
That unwritten resume, man.
So
man.
Yeah.
Especially in the entertainment business.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell you how many benefits, whether it's a job or whatever, was because when I went in for the interview, the executive was the assistant at some agency 10 years ago, and I was nice to them. In fact, this one woman who's, she might even be the head of development at ABC now, I don't know, but she was the assistant to a guy at 20th Television years ago who was just an ass, and I had an overall deal with them. And I would show up for a meeting, and he would always make me wait like 40 minutes. And I asked her, I said, "He's not doing anything in there, right?" And she's like, "No, he just does this." And she's like, "I'm so sorry." And it was like, "I'm sorry for you.
Yeah.
I can imagine how he treats us. I mean, I'm a writer-producer on an overall deal. You're his assistant. I can only imagine how he treats you." So then, years later, I had lost track of her. I don't doubt I even remembered her name, and I went in to pitch a show at ABC.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Mike, I'm so glad to see you on my schedule today. And you were the only writer who treated me like a human being."
Wow.
She's like, everyone else wouldn't even acknowledge that I was in that room with them.
Jeez.
And so, I sold a couple pilots because, not entirely, but that was certainly got me a boost.
Yeah.
Just being a human being.
Seriously. It's not that hard.
It's almost like being nice.
It's so much easier.
It really is.
So much easier.
Yeah. It's shocking to me. And I remember my freshman year of college, going into the theater program at Otterbein, one of the professors said, you don't get anywhere in this industry by being nice. You have to fight your way to the top. And I'm like, I get the fighting the way to the top.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think not being nice is...
Right.
While you're teaching and not acting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and yes, there are people, and I've certainly worked with celebrities who were nasty people, but the best ones were nice. In fact, I spoke at a middle school last year, and they wanted to know about the famous people I'd worked with. Unfortunately, they're in middle school, so the people that I worked with, they don't know. When I worked with, Whoopi Goldberg, they know who Whoopi Goldberg was. It's like,
so sad.
She's the most famous person on earth. Are you kidding me?
She was on Star Trek,
right? Drew Carey, they didn't know. Ellen, they kind of knew.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds, they knew because of Deadpool.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were saying, who was the nicest? It was so easy to talk about people like Drew Carey, who is a saint of a human being, or
That's never
Ryan Reynolds. They're really, really nice people.
Yeah.
But then they said, well, who was the worst person you worked with? And I said, I don't talk about any bad experience. I just don't do that. So then someone said, did you work with Reba McEntire? And they said, can you tell us about her? And I said, no. And they're like,
oh, there's one.
What? Yeah. Remember my rule? Okay. I don't talk about Reba. I don't talk about Brett Butler. There's a few people I don't talk about.
She was a piece of work anyway, wasn't she?
Oh, that was my very first job in television.
Oh my gosh.
Was writing on Grace Under Fire, and it was horrible. She blatantly sexually harassed me from the day I got there. I mean,
oh wow.
And it's why since then I have done work with sexual abuse, sexual harassment people because it's like I got it as a goofy guy. Mm-hmm. I can only imagine as a beautiful woman working and being harassed, So she had done this throughout her career, and there was all these stories of her doing things, even to the point the previous season, the boy who played her son on the show, it was his 14th birthday, and they had a cake on the stage, and she said, hey, you're a man, you want to know what a woman feels like? And she took his hand and put it under her skirt.
Oh my gosh.
And his parents pulled him from the show.
Yeah, I remember there was a
sued Darcy Werner. There was this big $5 million settlement and everything.
Oh my gosh.
But you should go to jail for that.
Yeah.
So she, the first day, I had known her a little bit through stand-up comedy, but so my first day there, she came into my office and she said, hey, nice to meet you, and you're always excited meeting the star. Right. This was great.
Yeah.
And she said, hey, I want to show you something. And she pulls up her shirt. She said, I just got my tits done. And I was like, oh, okay. And she goes, come on, touch them. They're the good ones. They feel real. And I said, oh, I don't know. My dad always said, never touch the boss's tits. And she kind of laughed it off and went away. And I was like, oh, well, that was weird. But I just figured, she's hazing the new guy. I have no problem. That's whatever. So I mentioned it to the boss, to the showrunner, and he was like, oh, man. Oh, well, hopefully she doesn't keep doing that. And I was like, oh, whatever. It's just, and so then, it got to the point where this was 96, so it was before cell phones. So I was just going through a divorce at that time. And there was this woman I started dating, and she had called and left a message for me, and they put it on this little cork board where we got our messages.
Right. Yeah.
And Brett saw it and called the woman and said, you got to stay away from Larsen. He's mine.
Oh my gosh.
And so this woman, fortunately, worked in television and knew the Brett Butler story. Yeah. And so she called and said, oh my God, Brett called me. But then she went into my office and stole my wallet and car keys. She used to call me at night. it eventually got to the point. So then one night we're doing a taping, and we would tape in front of a live studio audience, and the show at that time was a top 10 show. Grace Under Fire was huge, and so we would get these audiences mostly of tourists, people from the Midwest and the South, usually older white people would show up on a bus.
Right.
Yeah.
And Brett would want to go warm up the crowd, and we would do whatever we could to try to keep her off the microphone, because we're like, we don't want people to know who you are. They like you.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's keep that
So she's up when they're talking or doing her thing, and then she said, she's pointing out people on stage, and then she gets me, see that guy there? That's Larsen. He's my new writer. And he's either going to fuck me or he's fired. And these old people are like, it's just dead silence.
Oh my gosh.
And Tom Werner, who was one of the owners of the studio, Parsi Werner, was standing next to me, and he said, please don't sue us. And I kind of laughed it off. But it was just constant. So because of that, though, at the end of the season, they had me on a 2-year deal, and the showrunner left the show to go run Ellen and wanted me to go with him, and it was like, at that point, the hottest show on television.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Huge thing, and was pretty sure Ellen was not going to sexually harass me. So we were trying to get out of my deal, and the studio was saying, no, we want Mike to stay. And gosh. I told my agent, I said, please contact Tom Werner.
Yeah.
And he will understand that there is another avenue I can take. I don't want to take. Yeah. Certainly don't want to be the guy who sued someone for sexual harassment. I just want to be a writer. And that's the thing. People complain, say, someone comes forward 20 years later or something. Why didn't she say it at the time? And it's like, because the abuser doesn't get to set your schedule. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You don't want to, and like the Harvey Weinstein thing, these were young actors who finally got a huge break. Yep. And yes, maybe they put up with it to get in their first movie, but they deserve that career.
They're still a victim.
They're really, and they still wouldn't have gotten it if they weren't good at what they did.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's like nobody should have to be, and if when you bring something up, you then become known as that person.
Yeah.
The person who got sexually harassed, so therefore they didn't deserve any success, that whatever it was,
Yeah.
Further victimizing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in my case, I had a really good agent at the time, who's now my manager, who was able to make use of that because Brett's behavior was famous.
Yeah.
And so I was just a young... When you're a first-year writer in Hollywood, they call you a baby writer. So I was still a baby writer.
Yeah.
And pretty late... I didn't get my first job till I was 36. So that's pretty late for a comedy writer. But he was able to use that. He was calling every studio in town saying, you've got to hear Mike's story about Brett Butler.
Yeah.
And he was the one who encouraged me to tell it. He said, you own that.
Yeah.
She did that to you. Mm-hmm. You own that story. Use it. In fact, the final week of the season, the studio had hired a bodyguard for Brett, mostly to protect her from her,
Yeah.
And so, like the last week of the season, I lived really close to the studio. I used to walk to work. And I come out of my house one day, and I see Carl, who's the bodyguard for the studio. And so my first thought is, oh shit, is Brett around somewhere? And he said, I'm going to be with you this week. And I was like, why? Oh no, the studio just thought it would be a good idea. And so I was like, has she threatened my life?
Yeah.
And he said, no, but she did buy a gun. So the studio has hired someone else to be with her, and they want me to be with you. And I was like, oh, that's...
Oh, my gosh.
Holy cow.
Weird to just be a comedy writer on a stupid sitcom. But yeah, it was...
Wow.
And in fact, the showrunner had the PAs a few weeks earlier that whenever Brett walked into the office that we were at, everyone in the outer office was instructed to say, "Hi, Brett," really loud, so that I could sneak out the back door.
Oh my gosh!
So
what a nightmare!
It was like Norm from Cheers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it was funny.
I'm laughing at it, but inside it's like, God, this messed up.
And yet, again, I mean, I was 36. I'd been a comic all these years and never made. This was my big break.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, I used to tell when Brett was doing it, I was like, Brett, God damn it, man, I'm a comic who's finally making a paycheck. Come on, let me do my job.
Yeah.
I'm good at this. I'm really good at this.
Yeah.
You know. But,
oh, man.
Because they finally shut it down. Because
so
of
she
her,
did one more
they?
season that didn't even get completed.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of my friends were on that. And that was where she threw like a full Coke can at the head of the showrunner. She had gone, she was a pretty serious drug addict, did heroin.
Yeah.
In fact, I used to say, Brett was a heroin addict, and that's the only good thing I can say. Everything else was a negative. But it was just more and more erratic, and to the point. And part of it was, mental illness, which I feel for her for.
Right.
But in fact, they're saying we binge watched The Walking Dead, and Brett did a season of that.
Okay.
And she was really good at it.
Yeah.
Played a crazy lady. But I gotta say, even watching those episodes made me really uncomfortable.
I told
Marianne, I said, that's my daughter. It's like, that was she had heard the story. So that was the woman who tortured me for a season.
Wow.
But it was just very weird, even seeing her. And then, so maybe 5 years ago, I got a phone call from someone who worked for Brett and said that Brett wanted to meet me for lunch so she could apologize. And I said, I don't need an apology, but will you just share this with Brett? You shouldn't be making this call. Right?
Yeah.
You want to apologize? Pick up the fucking phone.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
That would feel like a setup, I think.
Oof.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know he didn't say it, but I know the assistant was probably thinking that too.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. What a mess! Wow.
That's messed up.
That is messed up. I didn't mean for you to talk about somebody wrongly when you don't like them.
No, it's okay. And I say I acknowledge
it's your story.
That it ended up helping my career. I mean, because you have an interesting story to tell,
Yeah.
But
I mean, you don't want that story to tell, probably.
No,
nobody really wants
and
that.
you have, I also, my other life working in politics, when I was on Capitol Hill, there were quite a few members of Congress who kind of have those reputations, and you would you would hear those stories so often, and it was, again, the people working there, it was their dream job.
Yeah.
And you're
on the Hill. Yeah. I mean,
right.
I want to do the thing. Yeah.
In fact, when we would hire, and the woman I worked for, Jackie Spears, just awesome and one of my best friends, but when we would hire people away from other offices, if they were from one of those abusive offices, they were choice people to get. 'Cause you're they're going to be so happy here.
Yeah.
We're going to work long hours, and she's a demanding boss, but she is a nice human being.
Right.
Yeah, a joy to work with.
I mean, that's what makes me so sad, is that instead of solving the problem, we just move away from it.
Yeah.
And it never gets solved.
Yeah.
Wow, this just went dark. Sorry.
No, there are just those people who just cannot handle power. They're so, I mean, our president is this person who is given this remarkable opportunity. Oh my God, you get to be the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
Think of all the cool things any of us would do.
Yeah.
And it's you chose to just instead fight your petty battles
and golf all the time.
How do you?
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah.
We could go on for hours on that one.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, you're so much fun.
Oh, nice to meet you. Yeah, it's nice to meet you. This has been great.
Well, I mean, we'll have to do this again.
Yes. Maybe someday without face masks.
I would love
Yeah.
that.
That would be
So
nice.
wear your mask
Yeah.
so that we can have this without face masks
I know,
next time.
but-
Thank you. PSA. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's where Speak Easily stands on
Yeah.
face masks.
Don't be a plague rat.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah.
I did.
So.
I posted yesterday. Ben saw it in my Kroger that we both use. Every single person had a mask.
Now you get a little bit of the
You got
nose
the
out
penis
kind of
nose
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes,
Which
yeah.
I mean, you know what? Sometimes they don't stay on, and that's
No,
fine.
right.
And,
No,
you know,
we had
but-
at my Giant Eagle yesterday. There was maybe one or two people. What's remarkable for me is that usually the people I find that don't have them are like old people.
Yeah,
It's like-
the people who are like severely at risk. Yeah, yeah.
I'm protecting you.
Right.
You are not protecting you.
I don't need your protection. I'm fine. Okay, fine.
Oh, if I
Fine.
can make a record. Check
Yeah.
out Chad Goes Deep.
Chad Goes Deep.
Uh,
It sounds
they're
like a porn.
friends of mine, right?
Okay.
They're hilarious. These guys, Chad and JT, they're both young comics,
Okay.
and they do these videos where they do like man on the street things.
Yeah.
So the most recent one is about wearing masks, where they and it's
Wait, are
hilarious.
these the guys on
On the
like
beach?
on the beach?
Yes.
walking-
Oh,
Yes.
yeah,
Oh
I
my
watched
god,
that.
that is
I
amazing.
did see that. That was
Oh,
brilliant.
okay. Well,
It's
Tom,
also horrible. too.
Tom, the guy who plays Chad, is
Yeah.
a very good friend of mine. His uncle is a close friend of mine. It's awesome. And what's so great about those guys, they're so positive.
Yeah.
Everything they do. And it is,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
it is
Super
so
sweet.
hard to do comedy and be positive
Yes.
and
Yes.
not be sarcastic. I mean,
Yeah.
sarcasm is so easy.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? Oh, no.
No.
It's great.
They
Yeah.
were so sweet.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it.
Right.
Chad Goes Deep. Not
Yeah.
porn, but check it out.
Yes. Yeah.
Aw, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you're doing, and yeah, we'll do this again.
Cool.
Sounds
Do you
good.
want to sign us off?
Sure.
On camera?
Oh, on camera?
Off camera?
Off
Or do
camera?
you want me to puppet you while we do it?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Fine. I like how you got you got the proper puppet fingers and everything
I've
too.
done this before.
Yes. Hey, if you like what you hear, find us on Facebook. That's kind of our primary landing page for everything related to the show. You can ask questions, suggest guests, tell us how much you love us, or the other
Yeah, tell us how
alternative.
much you
Please err on the side of love. Love is good, and we need lots of love in
Yeah,
the
we
world.
do.
Find us on Instagram as well. SoundCloud, iTunes to download previous episodes. And if you like what you hear, remember sharing is caring. And no matter what, watch out for the bath salt zombies, but wear a mask.
Please.
Put the mask on.
Get this over with.
Yeah. I'm so tired of wearing this dumb thing.
Love ya.
Love you. Bye. Boxland Media. Think big.